Auctions are overflowing with R-Vees.
Well, you know, the thrill of an auction can be addicting and a way to get prized possessions at a reasonable price. But a new scam is taking advantage and has roots here in the Sooner State.
And it's sending shockwaves through the entire market. Nearly new rigs, models that should be selling for premium prices, are showing up in massive batches and hammering for pennies. This isn't a seasonal dip. It's not a clearance sale. It's a full-blown correction happening in real time. Owners are losing equity, dealers are suffocating under inventory, and buyers are walking into deals that look incredible, until you learn why these rigs were dumped in the first place, because someone caused this overflow. And the reason changes everything you think you know about the market: the auction snap. The collapse didn't start with dealers, factories, or financing. It started the moment auction yards began overflowing with rigs that looked nearly new. Entire rows of Class A, Class C, and fifth wheels sat shoulder to shoulder, tagged, photographed, and listed for prices that didn't make sense. When an R-V that sold for well over $100,000 last year hammers for half that amount today, the market isn't softening, it is breaking in real time. Screenshots from Indiana, Texas, and Florida show hundreds arriving every morning. Intake crews can't process them fast enough. Some units still have dealership plastic inside. Some still have temporary plates. These aren't beaten down trade-ins. They're rigs the system couldn't hold anymore. Values don't drift downward in moments like this. They fall straight through the floor. The second too many units hit one place at the same time, the pricing structure that kept the industry alive collapses. And once buyers see those auction numbers, dealer prices lose all meaning. But the real story begins long before these rigs ever reach the auction yard. Hidden backlog. The reason millions of used R-Vees are now selling for pennies is simple. They were never truly used. They were the leftover inventory from the pandemic surge. Rigs ordered when factories ran double shifts and demand felt endless. Dealers kept accepting shipments long after buyers disappeared, terrified of losing allocation slots from manufacturers. So the backlog grew quietly behind showroom walls. Factory schedules from the last 2 years tell the truth. Production never slowed, even when orders did. That gap created a shadow pipeline of units that aged on paper but never touched a campground. To the auction yard, they're used. To anyone with sense, they're new rigs with old titles. Dealers tried hiding them with incentives, bundles, and limited-time markdowns. But you can't outrun time or interest once floor plan debt stacked too high. Those units had only one destination: liquidation. The moment they hit auctions, the disguise fell apart. Buyers finally saw what dealers hoped they'd never notice. The supply was far bigger than the demand. And that brings us to the engine behind every quiet collapse: the debt no dealer ever talks about. If you want updates the moment these auctions numbers shift again, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share what prices look like in your area. Dealer debt. If you want to know why nearly new rigs are selling for pennies, forget the sales pitches and look directly at the debt. Floor plan financing charges dealers interest every single day, and R-V sits still. When inventory moves, the system works. When it doesn't, that interest turns into a financial anchor powerful enough to drag an entire business under. Leaked rate sheets show how brutal this became. Units that sat for 90 days or more cost dealers thousands just in financing fees. Some lots carried hundreds of rigs past that threshold. No discount, no rebate, no spring sale could erase that debt quickly enough. So the rigs went to auction, not because they were bad, not because nobody wanted them, but because lenders demanded a number, any number, that stopped the bleeding. Auctions became the pressure valve the industry needed, even if it meant destroying resale values in the process. That's why you're seeing rigs fall, 10,000, 20,000, even 50,000 below book value. Dealers aren't being generous, they're drowning. And once those rigs hit the yard, a new problem emerged. One the industry can't hide anymore: price collapse. Auction data shows something the retail market refuses to admit. The moment an R-V sits too long, it loses authority over its own price. Fresh units that lingered on dealer lots for months flowed into auctions where value wasn't negotiated, it was exposed. Turnover dashboards confirmed the pattern. Units sitting more than 60 days showed sharp drops. At 90 days, they cratered. At 120 days, they entered the pennies on the dollar zone, where hammer prices come in so low they confuse first-time bidders. This isn't depreciation. This is abandonment. The market isn't easing downward. It's rejecting excess inventory entirely. Once the system accepted that millions of rigs existed with no buyers waiting, price control vanished. Dealers lost power, manufacturers lost leverage, lenders lost patience. The auction block became the only place where real numbers appeared, and those numbers are rewriting the entire industry. What looked like a seasonal slowdown has turned into a valuation reset so severe that even well-maintained rigs with clean records can't escape it. And the deeper you go into the data, the clearer it gets. This isn't temporary, it's structural. Millions of units flood auction lanes. The shift began when dealer lots could no longer hold the overflow. With every week adding fresh deliveries, the only option left was to push excess stock into auctions. Intake yards across Indiana, Texas, and Florida started filling before sunrise, with drivers lining up to unload rig after rig. Screenshots from auction scheduling systems showed entire blocks reserved for R-V units, sometimes listing more than 200 arrivals in a single morning. This was not ordinary movement. It was liquidation. What made the situation stand out was the timing. These shipments arrived before many lots had even cleared their previous week's drop-offs. By the time operators updated their intake logs, hundreds more were already en route. A system built for steady turnover now faced a surge it was never designed to handle. Once these units hit the lanes, the market changed instantly. Retail prices stopped mattering. The volume alone forced a reset. Every additional R-V entering the yard lowered expectations for the next one. Buyers on the sidelines saw opportunity, while sellers saw their margins dissolve. The moment these rigs reached the auction floor, the numbers on the hammer revealed what the retail market tried to hide. Hammer prices expose real value. At auctions, there is no sales pitch, no staged lighting, and no crafted language. The hammer decides the truth. A rig advertised a month earlier at $129,995 dropped to $103,500 when bidding closed. That fall was not an isolated case. Screenshots taken by attendees showed similar declines across multiple models, all confirming that retail pricing had drifted far from real demand. The reason these numbers matter is simple. Auctions reflect what buyers are genuinely willing to pay once emotion is removed. There are no extended warranties, no financing incentives, and no promises about future value. What remains is the bare figure. And those figures made clear that retail estimates had been inflated beyond sustainability. Dealers watching these hammer prices understood the implications immediately. If buyers could secure rigs at auction for tens of thousands less, retail lots would need to adjust quickly or risk being skipped altogether. Those markdowns began quietly, often unannounced, as managers tried to stay ahead of the next comparison. While falling hammer prices proved the market was correcting, another force accelerated the decline even more relentlessly: repossessions. Repossessions surge across all classes. As interest rates climbed and monthly payments increased, many owners reached a point where holding on was no longer possible. Lenders responded by reclaiming R-Vees at a pace not seen in years. Transport trucks moved through neighborhoods quietly, loading Class A and Class C rigs that had fallen behind on payments. The repossessed units did not sit long. They went straight into the same auction pipelines, already strained by dealer overflow. What made this wave more complicated were the conditions of the incoming rigs. VIN history reports showed water intrusion, prior accident repairs, and insurance claims that never appeared on dealer listing sheets. Some units carried flood tags from southern states, while others showed repeated electrical issues marked in past service entries. These were details many buyers never saw unless they checked independently. The influx of repossessions pushed values downward across every tier. Lenders, eager to reduce exposure, accepted lower bids just to clear inventory faster. This increased volume created a feedback loop. More supply meant lower values, and lower values meant more owners fell underwater on loans. The rigs hit hardest were the most expensive ones, and their fall pulled the rest of the market with them. High-end rigs lead the depreciation drop. The top of the market usually carries the most cushion, but during a downturn, It also carries the steepest drop. Class A rigs, especially diesel pushers, started showing declines of more than 30% in wholesale comparisons. A model once viewed as stable at $200,000 and $500 suddenly appeared at auction closer to $140,000 and $800. The shift was dramatic enough that dealers stopped quoting firm values over the phone. Towables, by contrast, slid at a slower pace. 10% to 15% drops appeared throughout regional listings, reflecting lower carrying costs and broader demand. Still, every category felt pressure. Wholesale charts, tracking month-to-month performance, showed a clear hierarchy. The more expensive the rig, the sharper the depreciation. For those watching closely, this pattern made sense. High-priced rigs rely on fewer buyers, and in a tightening economy, that pool shrinks quickly. Once dealers became overloaded with large Class A units, markdowns became unavoidable. Those markdowns filtered through the rest of the market, pushing mid-tier and budget models downward as well. The collapse did not stop with pricing tiers. It created ripple effects felt by owners, sellers, and dealers alike. With auctions reshaping values, the next phase reveals how the fallout spreads beyond the auction lanes. Small dealers slip into crisis. Small dealerships across Indiana and Ohio began feeling the strain long before the public noticed the shift. Floor plan debt, once manageable during steady turnover, suddenly grew heavier as inventory stopped moving. Each R-V sitting untouched represented another day of accumulating interest, insurance obligations, and pressure from lenders. Managers, who had spent decades navigating seasonal cycles, admitted privately that this downturn felt different. They watched costs rise while foot traffic thinned. Layoffs followed quickly. Service technicians lost hours first. Then sales staff saw schedules cut as revenue projections collapsed. One dealership reported reducing its team from 20 workers to just 11 within a single month. Another shut its doors entirely after lenders tightened credit and demanded accelerated repayment. State employment postings confirmed rising layoffs tied directly to R-V sales and manufacturing slowdowns. Communities built around decades of stable industry work now faced uncertainty. The most concerning part was the speed. Dealers, who once carried strong reputations, suddenly struggled to keep basic operations running. Supply vendors waiting on payments found invoices delayed or partially settled. Local repair shops, relying on dealership overflow, saw fewer referrals. When the foundation of a region's industry weakens, the ripple affects everyone who depends on it today. As dealerships fought to survive, owners felt a different kind of pressure hitting their budgets. Owners face costs they never saw coming. Owners who entered the market during the surge quickly found themselves facing costs they never fully accounted for. Insurance on a mid-sized R-V often reached $3,500 per year, depending on usage, storage, and past claims. Storage itself added another $1,500 annually for anyone without dedicated space at home. These expenses alone strained budgets before anyone considered the real issue: maintenance. Repairs shifted from occasional annoyances to major financial hits. Slide-out malfunctions, leveling system faults, and electrical problems routinely produced invoices between $2,500 and $5,800. Diesel models carried even higher risks, with routine service costing more than many new owners anticipated. A minor coolant leak or sensor failure could erase months of savings in one visit. These rising expenses collided with falling values, creating widespread negative equity. Owners who tried selling discovered their rigs worth far less than loan balances. Screenshots from dealership appraisal tools showed trade-in offers dropping by tens of thousands within a single season. For many households, the dream of travel had quietly become a line of debt, growing faster than they could pay it down, leaving budgets strained further each month. Where these losses appear first depends heavily on geography. If you want real market proof before making your next move, subscribe now. Every update we cover is built to protect your wallet, not the industry's narrative. Stay ready, stay informed, and do not let the next price swing catch you off guard. Geography decides who loses. First, where you live influences how sharply values fall. Metro regions tied to major auction hubs, such as Indianapolis, Dallas, and Houston, always feel the first impact. These areas move inventory faster, so when supply floods the system, prices adjust immediately. Reports from auction coordinators showed steep drops within a matter of weeks, with bidding far below seasonal expectations. Rural towns experience the shift more slowly. Limited turnover allows units to hold visible value a bit longer, but the decline eventually reaches them too. Local dealers in these regions often rely on personal relationships and repeat customers, so price reductions tend to happen quietly. By the time official markdowns appear, wholesale data has already signaled the change. Distance from auction hubs also affects transport costs. Moving an R-V from a southern region to a northern buyer adds hundreds or even thousands, depending on distance, fuel prices, and carrier availability. These added expenses reduce what shoppers are willing to pay, widening the price gap between regions. The result is a patchwork of values across the country rather than a single predictable market. Analyst maps reveal regional drops, with some counties falling quickly, while others hold briefly before joining the broader decline cycle. Even as prices fall differently across regions, factory slowdowns have done little to stabilize the situation. Factory slowdowns fail to stop the slide. Production slowdowns in northern Indiana signaled the industry's attempt to regain balance. Factories that once operated multiple shifts cut hours, paused assembly lines, or temporarily closed entire bays. Supplier cancellations increased as manufacturers reduced orders for axles, cabinetry, and electrical components. These measures were meant to relieve pressure, but oversupply within dealer networks remained overwhelming. Even with production cuts, new units continued arriving due to previous backlog schedules. R-Vees built months earlier still shipped into a saturated market, adding layers of inventory that dealers had no room to store. Managers attempted to stagger arrivals, but transport carriers operated on fixed timelines and contracts, leaving little flexibility. The slowdown simply could not keep pace with the excess. The ripple effects extended beyond factories. Vendors lost steady orders, repair shops saw fewer warranty referrals, and local businesses felt the absence of workers whose hours had been reduced. Communities relying on manufacturing stability now faced the early stages of economic strain. Despite reduced output, the overwhelming number of existing units ensured that price declines continued unchecked. Until the backlog is fully cleared, no production cut will restore balance, and every excess R-V already in circulation guarantees further weakening across all market segments ahead. With factories slowing and markets destabilizing, let's talk about how buyers can protect their wallets. Smart inspections shield your wallet. When prices fall this sharply, the smartest move is slowing down and inspecting everything. The biggest risks hiding inside an R-V always start with water. Check under beds, inside lower cabinets, around slide-out corners, and beneath storage lids. Any staining, soft flooring, or bubbling paneling means moisture intrusion. A moisture meter reading above normal is the strongest early warning sign, and dealers do not point this out unless you ask. Flood exposure kills electrical systems quietly, and repairs climb fast. Mechanical checks matter just as much. Slide-outs must extend without hesitation. A small shutter can turn into a repair that costs several thousand. Diesel engines need special attention to coolant lines, belts, filters, and emission sensors. Units that sat untouched for months often show failures only after a long drive, not during a short test. Electrical panels should be tested one circuit at a time. Breakers that trip or lights that flicker usually indicate grounding issues or damaged wiring. These are not cheap repairs. A technician's quote often shows how small problems turn into large bills quickly. Once the inspection is handled, the numbers decide everything. Simple math prevents overpaying. In a falling market, the only protection you have is a simple formula: wholesale value minus repair estimates minus your target price. That number becomes the maximum safe offer. Anything above it risks losing money the moment the market dips again. This is the method auction buyers rely on, because emotion cannot influence the outcome. Auction sheets show the truth. A rig once advertised at $85,400 hammered closer to $67,800. Wholesale data rarely lies. It reflects what real buyers are willing to pay when financing incentives and sales pressure are removed. Repairs must be factored honestly. Slide-out alignment, new tires, batteries, roof resealing, and minor electrical work often total several thousand. Diesel maintenance and emissions systems add even more. When these numbers are added correctly, overpriced listings stop looking attractive. The benefit of this approach is control. You never overpay, you never fall into negative equity, and you never rely on dealer estimates. The formula protects your wallet every time, regardless of market conditions. After the math, timing becomes the next tool that keeps you ahead of the drop. Timing, windows, shift, the advantage. Timing matters as much as price. Late winter and early autumn consistently deliver the steepest markdowns. Dealers rush to clear aging stock before floor plan interest piles up, and auction yards prepare for seasonal surges. When supply spikes and foot traffic slows, prices soften quickly. Auction cycles reveal clear patterns. Units processed in late winter often sell lower because buyers are still planning their travel seasons. In early autumn, new model arrivals force dealers to discount current inventory. These dual windows give you leverage that rarely appears during peak summer or early spring. Dealer aging reports prove the point. When an R-V crosses the 30-day mark without movement, managers begin marking it down quietly to avoid carrying costs. By 60 days, discounts deepen. By 90 days, auction becomes a real possibility. Tracking these cycles gives you more control than any negotiation trick. Knowing when to look is as important as knowing what to look for. Timing helps with price today, but future-proofing protects you from the next downturn. Strategy builds. Protection against future drops. Market cycles repeat themselves. Historical depreciation curves show the same pattern every time supply rises faster than demand. Key to protecting your money is buying only after understanding where the next decline is forming. Avoid units with high running costs when the market weakens. Diesel pushers, heavy Class A rigs, and specialty models fall the fastest when interest rates rise. Mid-sized and towable units tend to hold value longer because they appeal to a broader range of buyers. Verify condition, title history, and maintenance logs. An R-V with clean records outperforms one with unknown repairs every time. When you pair this with accurate pricing data and seasonal timing, the risk drops significantly. Future-proofing also means avoiding emotional purchases. Wait for the right month, track auction patterns, and compare actual hammer prices rather than relying on listed values. The more information you gather, the safer your money becomes. The next wave of price changes is already building. Staying patient, checking condition carefully, and letting the data guide your decisions will keep your wallet protected long after the current downturn settles. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the auction gates, don't leave blind. Prices are shifting faster than dealers want to admit, and the next 90 days will decide who saves money and who gets crushed. So drop a comment with what prices look like in your area. Hit that like button if you found this useful, and subscribe so you don't miss the next wave of data. This market isn't slowing down, and neither should you.